There are stories the West tells easily. Stories of gunfighters and gold miners, outlaws and lawmen, men who carved their names into history with violence and ambition. And then, there are the other stories, the ones that wait in silence, the ones that surface only after the grave has closed. This is one of those stories. His name was Charley Parkhurst. One-eyed Charlie, they called him. He was one of the best stagecoach drivers California ever saw. Tough as leather, fast with his fists, he could handle a 6-horse team through mountain passes that would break most men's nerve. He'd fought off bandits, survived being thrown from his coach, lived through storms and ambushes and the kind of loneliness that the frontier demanded. He voted in elections, drank whiskey in saloons, earned the respect of men who respected no one. And when he died, alone, in a small cabin near Watsonville, California, in December of 1879, a secret came to light. Charley Parkhurst had been a woman, and no one, not the men he'd worked beside for 30 years, not the passengers whose lives he'd held in his hands, not the community that knew him as a neighbor and a citizen. No one had known. This is the story of that life, not the legend, the life. We don't know where Charley was born. New Hampshire, most likely, sometime around 1812. The records are thin. Orphaned young or abandoned, the details blur into the kind of poverty that swallowed children whole in those days. What we do know is this: a child raised in an orphanage in New England, a girl assigned to laundry and kitchen work the way girls were, told what her life would be, told what she could not do. And at some point, perhaps 12 years old, perhaps younger, that child made a choice: to disappear, to become someone else, to cut her hair, bind her chest, steal a pair of trousers, and walk out into the world as a boy named Charley. We don't know what gave her the courage. We don't know if she had a plan or just desperation. But we know this: once she became Charley, she never went back. Charley found work in the stables, first in New England, then following the work west. Providence, Rhode Island, then further, always moving. He learned to handle horses the way some people learn music, instinctively, deeply. He had a gift for it, a way of reading an animal's mood, of steadying a spooked mare, of coaxing a stubborn gelding into harness. By his 20s, Charley was driving stagecoaches, and when gold was discovered in California in 1848, Charley, like thousands of others, saw an opportunity. Not for gold, for freedom. In 1849, Charley headed west. California in the gold rush years was chaos, a land where fortunes appeared overnight and vanished just as fast, where violence was common and law was thin, where men reinvented themselves with new names, new stories, new lives. It was the perfect place to be someone else. And Charley thrived. He became one of the most sought-after drivers on the line between Oakland and San Jose. Later, the treacherous mountain routes, over the Santa Cruz Mountains, through passes where the coach wheels ran inches from cliffs that dropped into nothing. Passengers who rode with Charley said he drove like the devil himself was chasing him. Fast, fearless, precise. He never wrecked, never lost a team, never missed a schedule. And in a profession full of rough men, Charley was known as one of the toughest. Charley didn't just drive, he drank with the men, chewed tobacco, played cards, got into fistfights when someone questioned his skill or his honor. He wore the same dusty clothes for weeks, kept his hair short and messy, spoke in a low, gravelly voice, whether naturally deep or deliberately roughened, we'll never know. And he lived alone, always alone. Other drivers had wives, families, people waiting for them at the end of the line. Charley had a horse, a cabin when he could afford it, and silence. In 1856, Charley lost his left eye. The story goes that he was kicked by a horse. Others say it was a fight. The details, as always, are murky. What's certain is this: he wore a black eye patch from then on, and the name stuck. One-eyed Charley. If the injury slowed him down, no one noticed. He kept driving, kept working, kept the secret. There were dangers, bandits especially. Highway robbery was a fact of life on the California roads, and stagecoach drivers carried weapons as routinely as they carried mail. Charley survived at least one ambush, a gang of masked men, guns drawn, blocking the road in the dark. He didn't stop. He drove straight through, cracked the whip, urged the horses into a full gallop, and left the bandits cursing in the dust behind him. He earned a reputation, not just skilled, fearless. And yet, underneath all that toughness, all that bravado, what was it like? To wake every morning and bind your body into hiding, to never let your guard down, to know that a single slip, a moment of carelessness, an illness, an injury, could destroy everything. To live among people and never be known. Charley wasn't always alone. For years he lived and worked alongside a partner, Frank Woodward. They ran a business together, raised cattle, chopped wood, lived the bachelor life in a small cabin on the outskirts of town. Two men, side by side. We don't know what they were to each other. Business partners, certainly. Friends, maybe. Something more. We'll never know. But later, Frank left. The partnership dissolved. And Charley, growing older, his body failing, lived out his final years alone. It was neighbors, the Harmon family, who found him in the end. By the 1870s, Charley's body was failing. Decades of hard living, injuries, illness, they caught up. He developed cancer, and in December of 1879, in a small wooden cabin near Watsonville, Charley Parkhurst died. Alone. The neighbors came, and when the doctor arrived to prepare the body for burial, the secret emerged. The local newspaper ran the story. Remarkable discovery. The famous stagecoach driver, the tough, hard-drinking, one-eyed veteran of the California roads, had been a woman all along. The community was stunned. Some felt deceived. Others were fascinated. Still others, perhaps, felt a quiet kind of respect. But the doctor confirmed something else, something the newspapers whispered about but didn't always print. Charley had once been a mother. In the cabin, among Charley's belongings, they found a baby's dress. Small, old, carefully folded. A ghost of a past life, locked away in a trunk, just as the woman she was born to be was locked away inside the driver known as Charley. We don't know what happened. A child lost to illness, perhaps, or given away, or buried somewhere we'll never find. But that tiny dress tells us something the legend never could. Charley didn't just choose to live as a man for adventure or convenience. He was running. From grief, from shame, from a world that would have branded him, judged him, destroyed him. And he ran all the way to California and became someone else. There's a grave now in Watsonville, a marker that reads, Charley Darky Parkhurst, 1812 to 1879, famous whip of the gold rush days. People still visit, still wonder. Did Frank know? Did anyone? Or was the disguise so perfect that Charley lived in a crowded room and remained utterly alone? Was Charley transgender in the way we understand that word today? Or simply someone who chose survival over authenticity, freedom over safety? Did Charley think of himself as a man, or as someone who had no choice but to live as one? We don't know. We can't know. But maybe that's not the point. The American frontier was a place where people could become who they needed to be, where the past could be left behind, where a question of identity could be answered not with documents or confessions, but with action. Charley Parkhurst drove stagecoaches through mountains and storms, survived violence, injury, and isolation, earned respect in a world that did not give it lightly, voted in an election 52 years before women were granted that right. And when the secret finally came to light, it didn't erase any of that. It only made the story more human. Some secrets are not crimes. They are acts of survival, acts of courage. Charley Parkhurst lived and died on his own terms. And maybe, just maybe, that's all any of us can hope for. A life that is ours, even if no one else understands it. Even if we take the truth with us to the grave. This has been Whispers of the Wild West, the story of One-Eyed Charley. A secret, a life, a legend that history almost forgot.